Freedom!
For over 7,000 years, the people of the Caribbean have been linked by their landscape and united by travel and commerce. Just over 500 years ago, the original civilization was drastically transformed with the arrival of Europeans in search of gold, glory, and God. In this series, we explore the civilizations of the Caribbean people, from the earliest recorded to the start of the 21st century.
Once we get beyond the idea that it's only the civilization that Columbus was familiar with, or the 15th century European civilization, as the only legitimate civilization, then what opens up before us is a dynamic area called the Caribbean, which was civilized long before the 15th century, thousands of years before. Some historians have pointed out 5, 6, 7, even 7,000 years prior to Columbus.
Many history books refer to the early inhabitants as Caribs and Arawaks, terms which fail to represent the people of the region.
To a large extent, Carib and Arawak was a creation in order to justify, to a large extent, the extermination of the people, or to justify why the Europeans would treat the people in a particular way.
Instead of the terms used by the Europeans, some scholars refer to the early inhabitants based on their stage of development: Meso-Indian, Paleo-Indian, and Neo-Indians.
The term Neo-Indian is a generic one which references people at a particular point of development. So when we look at their pottery, the pottery is saladoid, baroncoid type pottery, etc., the people, and we look at some of their social interactions, we look at their organization, we can group them with similar groups throughout the world. So that the term Neo-Indian is not unique to the Caribbean, but it is in fact a descriptor of a particular group of people at a particular stage of development.
Information about the Neo-Indians is coming from an interesting and unlikely source: buried garbage. Remnants of meals, pottery, toys, and cosmetic cases shed light on their lifestyle.
These people had full civilizations, very similar to our own. Of course, the technologies would have been different, but the fundamental tenets, a sense of beauty, a sense of recreation, even a sense of warfare, which has been overstressed perhaps. These people had functional societies, which has often been overlooked when we use the term uncivilized, when we use the term, or we think that it was an area of darkness prior to contact in the 15th century.
Economic pressure led Europeans to explore the Atlantic Ocean in the 1500s. Leading the way were the Portuguese. However, it was Italian Christopher Columbus who, according to recorded history, was the first to land on the islands and the landmass which became known as the Americas.
Christopher Columbus's voyage in 1492 was just one out of the many European voyages that were taking place at the time. It wasn't so significant then, but of course today it is rated as one of the top voyages insofar as it helped to discover a whole new continent which we know today as America.
Matthews sums up the impact of the Spaniards on the Amerindian population in one word:
devastation. The Spaniards brought devastation to the local people. They changed their culture. They changed their work regime. They eventually brought genocide to the native Amerindian population.
A population in the Greater Antilles and the Bahamas of approximately 250,000 in 1492 was reduced by 70% in just 30 years. The main culprit was disease, measles, smallpox, influenza. Amerindians had no immunity and died by the thousands. Another scourge was the inhumane encomienda system, where people were worked to death. Others took their lives, and those of their children, rather than be killed by Europeans. The Europeans, meanwhile, viewed the